Every developer sets out to craft the best product possible. Although nothing can truly be immaculate, there are a couple of IPs that teeter on perfection. But then again, there are some titles that could be hailed as bona fide masterpieces, if not for one obvious flaw. Spoiler warnings are in full effect because I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 flaws that stopped video games from being perfect. Number 10. Repetitive scenarios. Resident Evil 2 Remake. One of the many great things about the original PS1 version of Resident Evil 2, aside from introducing iconic characters, having one of the best game soundtracks of all time and generally kickstarting an era of cinematic horror games, was the zapping system. What this meant was playing the game through once with Leon or Claire and then going back through again the other way with the other character. This second run would offer some variety by introducing players to the Mr. X tyrant stalking the Raccoon City Police Department, as well as fill in story blanks. Some decisions made on your first run could affect your second. Additionally, the second playthrough would add in new boss fights previously unseen with the perpetually transforming William Birkin. The remake, however, really dropped the ball on this. As incredible as the 2019 reimagining of the game is for atmosphere, scares, characterization, and of course heart-stopping zombie battling gameplay, the title lost one element that made RE2 so great. Every playthrough of the remake features every single boss fight and set piece, so Leon and Claire's stories are now much more similar. In the second run mode players are asked to tackle after beating the game, they'll follow the same beat, avoiding the tyrant and facing down the same boss fights. RE2 Remake is frankly addictive and still thrilling every time, but its lack of variety really hurts the game's longevity. Number 9. Poor combat. PLANESCAPE Torment. In terms of story, character development and voice acting, PLANESCAPE Torment was light years ahead of other RPGs at the time. Black Isle Studios put so much effort into the thought-provoking narrative and how each choice affected the gameplay, so this underrated gem holds up by today's standards. However, the developers neglected one aspect which is critical in role players, the combat. Although Torment emphasises wisdom is a far greater weapon than blunt force, this notion doesn't justify the game's inadequate fighting mechanics. Due to the imbalanced and tactless battle system, players rarely have to rely on any strategy more advanced than wailing on enemies with their strongest attack. The animations during each brawl lack flair and impact, making every hit look unappealing. The controls during these sequences are imprecise and unresponsive, so players can miss their target even when they strike from point-blank range. What's more bizarre is the studio had already proved capable of formulating an efficient battle system since they published Baldur's Gate the previous year. Because the combat in BG was perfectly solid, it's perplexing why the developers couldn't recreate the magic for Torment. Number 8. Backtracking. Metroid Prime. Because Metroid is among the most beloved platformers of all time, it was risky for Retro Studios to turn Metroid Prime into a first-person game. But the title turned out to be an unparalleled triumph due to the immersive gameplay, atmospheric music, beautiful graphics, and emphasis on exploration. Prime won several Game of the Year awards, kicking off an ongoing series, and, in some people's opinion, even stole the crown as the GOAT of the franchise. With that said, the constant backtracking is a nuisance. Most power-ups allow our heroine Samus Aran entryway to previously inaccessible areas, compelling players to revisit terrains. Backtracking becomes grating near the end when Samus must locate the Chozo artifact, since there's no indication of where they even are. Now, this criticism may seem redundant since retracing your steps comes with the territory in Metroid. However, this issue is dealt with far better in the sequel. In Metroid Prime 2 Echo, shortcuts were usually created after Samus acquired certain items, minimizing the backtracking. On top of that, Echoes allow Samus to fast travel around the map, which was a godsend for speedrunners. If the original Metroid Prime implemented these ideas, the backtracking would have been less repetitive. Number 7. The Batmobile. Batman Arkham Knight. WB Games Montreal's Arkham Origins may have been a misfire in the Batman Arkham saga, but fans were still optimistic for the follow-up. Not only was Arkham Knight helmed by the franchise's original creators and brought back the main stars Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, it allowed players to get behind the wheel of the Batmobile. This sounded like a dream come true, since fans had hoped the series would one day give people the chance to zoom through Gotham in the Dark Knight's weaponized car. Unfortunately, the Batmobile is used in so many quests, battles, and puzzles, the novelty quickly wears thin. Players wind up looking forward to getting back to regular gameplay since the gun-toting automobile is hard to control. Also, the Batmobile sections don't really make any sense. How do thugs survive after Batman rams his death tank into them at 140 miles an hour? Shouldn't their bodies be reduced to paste? And because the difficulty curve spikes in the last few driving missions, players will curse the day they wished for the Batmobile to be included in Arkham Knight. Number 6. Outrageous difficulty. Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. In 2017, Toys for Bob successfully recreated the Crash Bandicoot trilogy with the N-Sane trilogy. However, things were different when they helmed Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, since the developers had to craft a game revolving around the box-bashing marsupial from scratch. Not only did It's About Time capture the essence of its predecessors though, it incorporated many new mechanics that diversified the gameplay, allowing this long-awaited sequel to stand on its own. However, this installment captured Crash's spirit a little too well. Although the original games were renowned for their rock-hard levels, many expected Crash's latest outing would drastically tone down the difficulty. Instead, everything was made way harder. Crash veterans found themselves being squashed, incinerated, and blown up countless times on every level. Although our heroes have unlimited lives, it's still tedious to die on the exact same sections dozens of times. And because the levels are much longer, it takes forever to complete a single mission. Casual fans will rage quit for good long before they reach the halfway point, and since players lose out on bonuses if they die more than 3 times, completionists will find Crash 4 a deeply unforgiving experience. Number 5, Lady Comstock, Bioshock Infinite. Because the original Bioshock's final boss was a letdown, a rational game should have bent over backwards to make sure that the franchise didn't make the same mistake twice. Although the battle with Lady Comstock in Bioshock Infinite isn't as anticlimactic, it's still unbearably frustrating. When Booker DeWitt encounters the spirit of Comstock's late wife, players are anticipating an epic showdown since she's been built up for hours. Instead, they take part in the most irritating part of the game. Lady Comstock is a damage sponge who can heal and increase her maximum health, dragging out the battle for far too long. She can turn invisible and teleport, giving players little opportunity to hit her. Her attacks are relentless and she's immune to stronger weapons, forcing Booker to blast her with his rinky-dink guns. Worst of all, she's invulnerable until our hero eliminates her sirens. Because she can resurrect her minions as fast as Booker can kill them, most of the confrontation feels like a stalemate. And although a boss fight should be tough, it feels like the developers gave this vengeful phantom every annoying mechanic possible. Number 4, the General White mission, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Because of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door's unique battle system, original visuals, innovative paper-based mechanics, and hilarious humour, the flat-themed sequel is considered the tantamount of the franchise. Even though Mario's whimsical adventure seems borderline perfect, for the most part everything grinds to a halt during Chapter 7. The episode begins with Mario's troop heading to Far Outpost to find a bomb called General White. After reaching the settlement, the locals inform Mario that they don't know where White is, urging the fireball-spewing hero to ask around. Offered no clues, the Goomba-stomping plumber must chat to everyone in the entire game, hoping to find someone who knows about White's whereabouts. Only after speaking to 5 specific people will White make his presence known. And where has the slippery bomb been the whole time? Well, in Far Outpost, of course. Even though White was in the same spot where Mario started his mission, the player can't speak to him until they go through this pointless rigmarole. Now, there's nothing wrong with filler so long as it's entertaining. However, this fetch quest is so laborious, it's obvious it was inserted just to pad out the playthrough. Number 3, Horse Riding: The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. As impressive as the first 2 Witcher games were, CD Projekt outdid themselves with Geralt of Rivia's third outing. Every detail in The Witcher 3, whether it's the narrative, the open world, or the combat, has been refined to perfection. The lore is richly detailed, and the continent truly feels like a world that's lived in, allowing players to immerse themselves in its harrowing narrative. The only thing stopping The Witcher 3 from being truly sublime is the horse riding. Where Geralt gallops on his noble steed, the controls can be clunky and unresponsive, making it difficult to perform the most simple maneuvers. The horse will sometimes be unable to clip-clop forward due to encountering the smallest of hills, and other times the stallion stops dead for seemingly no reason at all. Stranger still, this wasn't an issue in The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings. Although every other aspect of The Witcher 3 has improved, this one element has regressed. As such, there are times when the player will be incentivized to head to their next destination on foot, since riding is too much of a hassle. Number 2, MINERU: The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. After being hyped to mythical proportions, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom still exceeded all expectations. Thanks to the precise mechanics, especially involving the building systems, there are times where this installment makes Breath of the Wild feel like a demo by comparison. There is so much creative and unique content players can explore for over 100 hours without the gameplay feeling like a grind or filler, with one exception. Similar to its predecessor, Link must complete 4 dungeons before confronting Ganondorf in Hyrule Castle. Just as it looks like the final battle is about to commence, Link and the sages discover they must track down another sage called MINERU. After traversing through another dungeon for a couple of hours, Link awakens a robot that harbours MINERU's spirit. Because each sage gifts Link with a unique power, players expect MINERU to do the same. And what does she do? Well, she bashes stuff. Yep, that's it. Being the final sage, players expected MINERU to be the most useful of allies. However, she's so slow and clumsy, players are better off relying on their own combat skills. Considering the climax was stopped dead to introduce this character, it was assumed she would be vastly helpful. Ironically, players can use Ultra Hand to create a far superior automaton. And number 1, zero replay value, the return of the Obra Dinn. Made single-handedly by Lucas Pope, Return of the Obra Dinn is a puzzle title unlike any other. The game opens with an insurance inspector arriving on a ship with the crew suffering from a severe case of being dead. Scouring for corpses, the protagonist uses his magical pocket watch to relive the last moments of each person to decipher how they met their fate. As breathtaking as the music and the dithering aesthetic is, it's the mystery that makes this indie so enchanting. Although there's an ocean of clues, nothing is spelt out, forcing players to rely on logic, observation, processes of elimination, and guesswork. Gauging accents and languages is also pivotal to whittling down the identities of each passenger. It's tough, but players feel like a genius every time their deduction skills pay off. Obra Dinn takes players on such a gripping journey, it's a pity it can only be experienced once. After playing this nautical whodunit again, players can fill in all the answers much like a kid cheating on a school test. Because it's impossible to skip or speed up each passenger's memory the first time it's experienced, players have to wait for them to run their course, even if they've already uncovered all of the clues. So not only is there no mystery the second time around, the riveting gameplay feels sluggish and tiresome. Now, just because these games were let down by a small flaw doesn't mean that they aren't still great. And speaking of great, there are of course some video games that had no right being as good as they are. Check out that list right now on screen, click it, do the thing, and make sure of course to like this video, leave a comment down below on other examples of near perfect games with one flaw. Head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.